The double doors of the old barn burst open with a crack like thunder, splintering the lazy twang of a country fiddle and sending a cascade of silk flower petals scattering across the polished oak floor. Elijah stood there, chest heaving, his thrift store suit jacket hanging off one shoulder like a flag of surrender, eyes wild and locked on the altar where Isaiah, knelt in a rented tux, ring halfway up the bride's trembling finger. "Don't do it," Elijah rasped, voice slicing through the stunned hush like a knife through wedding cake. "Because if you say I do, you're killing us both." The air in Willow Creek barn smelled of magnolias and fresh-cut hay, the kind of scent that clung to Georgia summers like a promise you couldn't quite trust. It was the sort of wedding that small-town America dreamed up in its sleep. White tents billowing in the breeze off the Chattahoochee River, mason jars brimming with sweet tea and bourbon, and a playlist that jumped from Johnny Cash to Jason Aldean without missing a beat. Folks from 3 counties over had driven in their pickups, tailgates down, coolers thumping with ice and Miller Lights, all to celebrate Isaiah Harlan and Becca Montgomery's big day. Isaiah, the golden boy of Harlan Farms, broad-shouldered, easy smile, the kind of guy who could fix a tractor engine blindfolded and still quote psalms at the dinner table. Becca, the pastor's daughter, with her honey-blonde curls and a laugh that made you believe in forever. But Elijah Washington was the ghost no one invited. He wasn't from Willow Creek. Not really. Born in the cracked sidewalks of Atlanta's West End, raised by a single mom who scrubbed floors at the hospital till her hands bled, Elijah had clawed his way to Emory on scholarships and spite. Art major, queer as a $3 bill, with skin like polished mahogany and eyes that held storms. He'd met Isaiah 3 summers back, at a bonfire party on the edge of town, where the fireflies danced like lost souls and the beer flowed freer than the river. Isaiah had been home from Auburn, nursing a knee injury from football, and Elijah was crashing with a cousin for the weekend. One glance across the flames, and it was like the world tilted. Isaiah's laugh cutting through the smoke, Elijah's heart slamming against his ribs like it wanted out. They'd stolen moments after that. Late-night drives down back roads, Isaiah's truck bed as their bed, stars wheeling overhead while they whispered dreams neither could voice in daylight. "This ain't me," Isaiah had murmured once, his calloused fingers tracing Elijah's jaw in the dark. The farm, the church, Dad's expectations, it's all a script. But you're the rewrite. Elijah had believed him, God help him. Believed in the way Isaiah's breath hitched when they kissed. In the mixtapes slipped into Elijah's glove box, Springsteen ballads and hushed R&B tracks that spoke what words couldn't. But belief's a fragile thing, especially when your man's got a family legacy heavier than a John Deere. By senior year at Auburn, Isaiah was buckling. The Harlan name meant land, votes at the county fair, and a seat at the VFW bar where old men swapped war stories and homophobic barbs like trading cards. Becca had always been there, sweet and steady, the girl who baked pies for fundraisers and volunteered at the soup kitchen. "She's good people," Isaiah told Elijah over burner phones, voice cracking like dry earth. "But she ain't you." Still, the pressure mounted, his daddy's failing health, the farm teetering on foreclosure after a bad harvest. Whispers from the congregation about settling down proper. Elijah saw it coming, the way a painter spots shadows before the storm. He begged Isaiah to fight, to come out, to choose them. "We can leave," Elijah said, packing sketches into a duffel one rainy night in Isaiah's dorm. "Atlanta's got galleries, jobs. We build something real." Isaiah's eyes had gone distant, like he was staring down a barrel he couldn't unsee. "I can't blow it all up, Eli." Not yet. Just give me time. Time. That word hung between them like smoke after a gunshot. Elijah waited, months bleeding into a year, calls going unanswered, texts turning to ghosts. Then the save-the-date arrived in his campus mailbox. Crisp cardstock with gold embossing. Isaiah and Becca. Forever starts here. Elijah burned it in the sink, the flames licking up the words like they were lies made flesh. Now, here he was, 900 miles from sanity, tires smoking from the drive down I-85, heart a war drum in his chest. The barn's doors loomed like Judgment Day, and Elijah kicked them wide, the wood groaning in protest. Gasps rippled through the crowd, 200 faces turning, a sea of pastel suits and floral dresses frozen mid-clink of forks on china. Up front, Reverend Montgomery faltered, Bible trembling in his grip, while Becca's veil quivered like a leaf in wind. Isaiah rose slow, color draining from his face, those hazel eyes, Elijah's undoing, widening in a mix of terror and something fiercer, like recognition. Who the hell are you? Isaiah's uncle bellowed from the groom's side, a burly man in a biwello tie, half rising from his pew. Murmurs swelled. Some drunk queer from the city? Ruinin' a good Christian wedding. Call the sheriff. Elijah ignored them, boots thudding on the aisle runner as he closed the distance. Every step a betrayal of the quiet life he'd tried to build back in Atlanta. Freelance illustrations for indie mags, coffee dates that went nowhere, nights staring at the ceiling replaying Isaiah's voice. He'd told himself he was over it, that love like theirs was a fever dream for fools. But the invite had gutted him anew, and now, with the organist's fingers hovering uselessly over keys, Elijah stopped 5 feet from the altar, close enough to smell Isaiah's cologne, cedar and regret. Don't, Elijah said again, softer this time, but the word carried, slicing the tension like a vow undone. Isaiah's jaw clenched, knuckles white on Becca's hand, and for a heartbeat, the world narrowed to just them. The boy from the farm and the artist from the streets, 2 halves of a secret symphony no one else could hear. Becca turned, confusion etching lines on her porcelain face, her bouquet of peonies drooping like a question mark. Isaiah, she whispered, voice small as a child's. The groom's mic stand gleamed under the chandeliers, vintage Edison bulbs strung like stars in a hayloft sky. Isaiah's hand twitched toward it, but he didn't move. Not yet. The clock on the barn wall ticked merciless. 1 minute gone. 8 to go before the punchline no one saw coming. Elijah's chest burned, lungs starved for air he couldn't draw. He'd driven through the night, radio blasting gospel covers of pop songs, each mile a prayer to a God who'd never listened. What now? Yell the truth? Drag Isaiah out by his cummerbund? Or just stand there, bleeding out in silence while the good folks of Willow Creek sharpened their pitchforks? Reverend Montgomery cleared his throat, stepping forward like a referee in a brawl. Son, this is a sacred. But Elijah cut him off, voice steady as rebar. Sacred? You want to talk sacred? Ask your future son-in-law what he whispers in the dark. When the Bible's closed and the world's asleep. The congregation erupted. Hisses, shouts. A woman in the back row crossing herself like Elijah was the devil incarnate. Uncle Harlan surged forward, meaty fist balled, but Isaiah's voice cracked the chaos like lightning. Stop! It was barely a word, but it landed heavy, halting the tide. Isaiah released Becca's hand, slow as unwinding a noose, and turned fully to Elijah. Their eyes met, and in that gaze, Elijah saw it all. The bonfire sparks, the truck bed confessions, the promises frayed to threads. 2 minutes down. The fiddler had fled to the bar, bottle in hand, and the photographer, poor kid with a Nikon slung low, snapped away like this was National Geographic drama. Becca's voice broke through, sharp as shattered crystal. Isaiah, what's happening? Who is he? Her eyes darted between them, piecing together fragments she didn't want to see. Isaiah swallowed, Adam's apple bobbing, and for the first time in years, Elijah saw fear give way to fire. The groom took a step back, not away from Elijah, but toward the mic, 3 feet of cold metal salvation. The crowd held its breath, a collective inhale that sucked the oxygen from the room. Elijah's knees buckled, just a fraction, but he held ground. Tell them, he urged, voice raw honey over gravel. Or I will. It wasn't a threat. It was a plea, the last thread of a man who'd loved too hard, lost too much. Isaiah's lips parted, words forming like rain clouds, and as the clock hit minute 4, the barn felt less like a wedding venue and more like a confessional booth, walls closing in on secrets too big for one lifetime. Outside, thunder rumbled low over the river, a warning from the gods of half-truths. Inside, the air thickened with the scent of spilled champagne and unspoken sins. Elijah's mind flashed to their last real night, Isaiah's dorm, rain lashing the windows, bodies tangled in sheets that smelled of cheap detergent and hope. I love you, Isaiah had gasped, forehead pressed to Elijah's, sweat slick and spent. More than the farm, more than football, more than breathing. Elijah had clung to that, etched it into his sketchbooks like scripture. But love's a fickle cartographer, redrawing maps when you're not looking. Now, with Becca's bridesmaids clustering like hens around her, whispering poison, and Isaiah's daddy, old Harlan Sr., oxygen tank wheezing in the corner, glaring daggers from his wheelchair, Elijah wondered if he'd redrawn his own grave. 5 minutes in, and the whispers turned to jeers. Faggot agitator, city trash, get him out. A cousin of Isaiah's, buzzcut and belligerent, lunged from the pews, but Isaiah's bark stopped him cold. Touch him, and you're dead to me. The words hung, a gauntlet thrown. Elijah's heart stuttered. Was that the rewrite, or just another stall? The mic loomed, seductive as sin, and Isaiah's fingers brushed it, trembling. 6 minutes. The storm outside picked up, rain pattering the tin roof like impatient fingers. Elijah met Isaiah's gaze again, and in those hazel depths, he saw not just the boy he'd loved, but the man he'd become, cracked open, edges sharp with regret. Tell me you don't feel it, Elijah said, voice dropping to a whisper that carried anyway. Tell me 900 miles was for nothing. Isaiah's chest rose and fell, a tide pulling at anchors. The bride sobbed quietly now, veil askew, and the reverend prayed under his breath, rosary beads clicking like countdowns. 7 minutes. The crowd shifted, uneasy, sensing the fracture lines spiderwebbing the fairy tale. Then, with a sound like fate snapping its leash, Isaiah grabbed the mic. The microphone screeched feedback, a high-pitched wail that clawed at eardrums and shattered the fragile piece. Isaiah gripped it like a lifeline, knuckles bone-white against the black foam, his tuxedo jacket straining at the shoulders as if the fabric itself protested the weight of what came next. Folks, he started, voice booming through the speakers hung from the rafters, amplified and raw. I gotta say something. Before this goes any further. Elijah stood rooted, pulse thundering in his ears louder than the storm now lashing the barn's sides. Rain hammered the roof in sheets, turning the world outside to a watercolor blur, while inside, 200 souls leaned forward, a mix of morbid curiosity and mounting outrage. Becca clutched her father's arm, her mascara blooming black rivers down her cheeks. But her eyes, those sharp blue eyes, fixed on Isaiah with a dawning clarity that twisted Elijah's gut. She'd known, maybe, or suspected. Women like Becca, raised on potlucks and passive pleas, often did. Isaiah cleared his throat, the sound echoing like a confession in a canyon. This wedding. It's been planned since we were kids in Sunday school, Becca and me. Plain house in the church basement, sharing Kool-Aid and crayons. You'll remember that, don't you? How we laughed about growing up, tying the knot under the same steeple that baptized us both. Nods rippled through the crowd, aunts dabbing eyes with monogrammed hankies, uncles grunting approval. Elijah's stomach soured. This was the script, the one Isaiah had recited 1,000 times in stolen calls, voice laced with apology. But here's the God's honest truth, Isaiah pressed on, mic trembling but steadying as he found his rhythm, like a quarterback calling an audible at the line. I ain't the man y'all think I am. Not all the way. A hush fell, thicker than the humid air, broken only by a distant thunderclap. Elijah's breath caught. This was it, the cliff edge. Jump or fall back. He scanned Isaiah's face. The faint scar above his left eyebrow from a childhood tree climb gone wrong. The way his hair curled damp at the temples from nervous sweat. Memories flooded Elijah unbidden. Their first touch, tentative fingers brushing under a quilt at a family reunion. Elijah had crashed as the cousin from Atlanta. Isaiah's whisper then, I've never. With a guy, the hesitation, the hunger, the way they'd fumbled into something sacred. Bodies learning languages neither spoke aloud. Elijah had been Isaiah's first everything. First kiss that lingered, first night without shame, first dream of a life beyond cornfields and conformity. Isaiah's voice dipped low, intimate despite the amplification. Elijah here. He's not crashin' nothin'. He's the reason I'm standin' up straight today. The reason I know what love feels like when it's real, not just expected. Gasps erupted, a wave crashing against the pews. Uncle Harlan lurched to his feet again, face purple as a bruised plum. Boy, you lost your damn mind? In front of God and everybody. But Isaiah didn't flinch. Eyes locked on Elijah's like they were the only two in the storm. 8 minutes since the doors flew open, and the clock on the wall mocked them with its relentless tick. Becca stepped forward, veil slipping to the floor in a whisper of tulle, her bouquet abandoned like a casualty. Isaiah, she said, voice steady as steel despite the tears. Is this why? The late nights, the hunting trips with no deer. Isaiah nodded, slow and solemn, and something in Elijah cracked, not jealousy, but grief for the woman who'd been collateral in their cowardice. Becca turned to Elijah then, praising, not with hate but a weary understanding. You love him enough to ruin this? Elijah swallowed, throat dry as dust. More than enough to save him from it. The words hung, simple and true, and for a flicker, Becca's lips twitched. Not a smile, but acknowledgement. The crowd wasn't so kind. Whispers turned to hisses. Sodom and Gomorrah? Harlan blood running queer? A teenage ring-bearer. Isaiah's nephew, wide-eyed and confused, tugged at his mother's skirt. Mama, what's a weirdo? 9 minutes. Isaiah dropped the mic to his side, the feedback whine dying to a hum, and closed the gap to Elijah in 3 strides. The aisle felt endless, each step echoing like a heartbeat amplified. When he reached Elijah, the world narrowed to the heat radiating off him, the faint stubble shadow on his jaw, the cologne that still said home no matter how far they'd run. "I'm sorry," Isaiah breathed, close enough that only Elijah could hear, his hand ghosting Elijah's arm, a touch electric as the first time. "For the silence. For making you wait. For thinking I could outrun this." Elijah's vision blurred, hot tears pricking. "You almost married her. Is for what? The farm? Your daddy's ghost." Isaiah winced, but didn't pull away. "For you. To buy time till I could fix it. But seeing you here, it's like waking up." The crowd surged then, a tide of outrage, Harlan Sr. wheeling forward, bellowing scriptures like bullets, Becca's father invoking hellfire. Fists clenched, chairs scraped, and in the melee, someone shoved Elijah hard from behind, sending him stumbling into Isaiah's chest. They locked arms instinctively, a fortress of 2 against the storm. "Enough!" Isaiah roared, mic forgotten but voice carrying. "This is my wedding. My life. You'll want a Harlan? Fine. But you get all of me or none." The barn fell silent again, rain the only applause. Becca approached, deliberate, and placed a hand on Isaiah's shoulder. Not possessive, but releasing. "Go," she said softly, eyes flicking to Elijah. "Both of you. I'll handle the fallout. Tell him it was cold feet, a fight over money. Whatever." Isaiah's face crumpled, gratitude and guilt warring. "Becca, she shook her head, fierce. "I deserved better than half a heart, Isaiah. But you deserve whole." With that, she turned to the Reverend, voice rising clear. "Wedding's off, Daddy. Send folks home with cake." Chaos bloomed anew, cancellations, consolations, the caterers scrambling. But Elijah and Isaiah slipped through a side door into the downpour, the world blurring to gray. The truck waited in the lot, Isaiah's old Ford F-150, mud-splattered and faithful. They piled in, soaked to the skin, engine coughing to life as lightning forked the sky. Isaiah gunned it down the gravel drive, tires spinning, Willow Creek shrinking in the rearview. "Where to?" he asked, one hand on the wheel, the other finding Elijah's knee, tentative, then sure. "Anywhere but here," Elijah replied, exhaustion crashing over him like the waves. They drove north, toward Atlanta's glow on the horizon, radio crackling with static and half-songs. Isaiah talked then, words tumbling like the rain, about the proposal to Becca, staged under duress after his daddy's heart scare. About the nights he'd driven to the city limits just to stare at the skyline, imagining Elijah's loft with its canvases and chaos. "I thought marrying her would quiet the noise," he admitted, voice thick. "Make me normal. But it just amplified you." Elijah leaned back, head against the window, watching Isaiah's profile etched in dashboard light. "Normal's a cage. We both know that." Silence settled, companionable now, broken only by wipers slapping rhythm. By the time they hit the suburbs, the storm had eased to a drizzle, and Elijah's phone buzzed, texts from his mom. "Heard about the wedding. You okay, baby?" He silenced it, not ready for questions. Isaiah's place in the city was a sublet efficiency above a laundromat, all exposed brick and second-hand furniture, a far cry from the farm's sprawl. They stripped off wet clothes in the dim hall light, towels from a shared basket smelling of drier sheets. No urgency tonight, just the quiet reverence of survivors. In bed, under a quilt pieced from Isaiah's grandma's scraps, they traced scars. Elijah's tattoo of a phoenix on his ribs, inked after their first fight. Isaiah's faded bruises from Auburn practices, ghosts of glory. "I love you," Isaiah said into the dark, not a question but a vow renewed. Elijah turned, lips brushing Isaiah's temple. "Prove it tomorrow." Sleep came fitful, dreams tangled with white veils and bonfire embers. Morning broke hazy, coffee brewing in a pot that gurgled like gossip. Isaiah's phone exploded first, voicemails from kin, news alerts about the Willow Creek wedding walkout. He deleted them all. Focus on Elijah sketching idly at the kitchen table, charcoal smudging his fingers. "What's the plan?" Isaiah asked, sliding a mug across scarred wood. Elijah looked up, eyes clear for the first time in months. "We fight. For us. No more hidin'." Isaiah nodded, resolve hardening like mortar. But betrayal's shadow lingered, the farm, the family, the life Isaiah had half-lived. As they stepped into the sun, hand in hand down cracked sidewalks, Elijah wondered if love was enough to rebuild on ruins. Little did they know, the real storm was just brewing. Atlanta's skyline loomed like a jagged promise, steel and glass fingers scraping a sky bruised purple by late afternoon clouds. Elijah's loft in Midtown was a sanctuary of sorts. High ceilings, walls papered in sketches of lovers lost and found, a bay window overlooking Peachtree Street's endless hustle. It smelled of turpentine and takeout Thai, the kind of lived-in chaos that screamed artist surviving. Isaiah dropped their duffels by the door, the thud echoing like punctuation on yesterday's madness. "Home," he murmured, testing the word, as if it might shatter. Elijah watched him from the kitchenette, pouring bourbon into mismatched tumblers. Maker's Mark, smooth as sin. "Yours or mine?" he asked, handing one over. Their fingers brushed, lingering, a spark that hadn't dimmed. Isaiah sipped, wincing at the burn, eyes roaming the space. The unmade futon piled with throw pillows, the easel in the corner holding a half-finished portrait of them. Isaiah's face emerging from charcoal shadows, tender and fierce. "Ours," Isaiah replied finally, voice low. "If you'll have me." The word ours hung sweet, but Elijah's laugh was sharp-edged. 9 months of radio silence, and now it's ours? You think a mic grab erases that? He paced, bourbon sloshing, the loft feeling smaller under the weight of unsaid hurts. Isaiah set his glass down, stepping close, too close, heat radiating like a forge. "I was scared, Eli. Daddy's on his last legs, the bank circling the farm like vultures. Maureen Becca was the easy out, the one that kept the lights on." Elijah's eyes flashed. "Easy? For who? Her? Your legacy? Sure as hell wasn't for me. Driving solo while you played house." Isaiah's face crumpled, hands raking through his hair. "You're right. I betrayed us. Betrayed you." The admission landed heavy, cracking the air. Elijah stopped pacing, chest tight. Betrayal wasn't just the wedding. It was the faded texts, the busy excuses, the way Isaiah had let Elijah's calls go to voicemail while picking out china patterns with Becca. "I waited," Elijah whispered, voice breaking. "Thought you were worth it. But waitin' turns love toxic. Is like milk left out too long." Isaiah reached out, tentative, cupping Elijah's face, thumbs rough from hay bales, gentle as prayer. Let me make it right. No more half measures. Their kiss started soft. Apology poured into parted lips, then deepened, hungry as the miles between them. Clothes shed in a trail to the futon. Bodies rediscovering rhythms. Isaiah's weight pinning Elijah. Breaths mingling in gasps that fogged the window. It was reclamation, raw and reverent, skin on skin erasing the cold of separate beds. Afterward, tangled in sheets, Isaiah traced Elijah's spine. What's your dream, Eli? The one without me holding you back. Elijah propped on an elbow, considering. Gallery show. Something big, queer stories. Black joy. The mess of lovin' in America. No more freelance scraps. Isaiah grinned, lazy and real. Then we make it happen. I got savings from the farm gig, enough for rent here. Maybe a studio space. Hope flickered, fragile as a match flame, but real. They dozed, waking to pizza delivery and Netflix marathons, moonlight on repeat. Barry Jenkins' poetry a balm for their wounds. But Willow Creek's tentacles reached far. Isaiah's phone buzzed relentless. His sister Lila, voicemail tear-choked. Daddy had a spell last night. Says the devil's in you, but I know better. Come home. Fix this. Then Becca, text crisp. Congrats on the drama. Farm's safe, told everyone you bolted over debt. Don't ghost me again. Elijah read over his shoulder. A pang for the woman left holding the bouquet. She's tougher than both of us, he said. Isaiah nodded, guilt etching lines around his eyes. Yeah. And I owe her coffee. Black. No sugar. The conflict simmered low at first. Isaiah job hunting online, applying for mechanic spots in the city, while Elijah sketched furiously, channeling the wedding wreckage into abstracts of fractured vows. They walked Piedmont Park hand in hand, defying stares from joggers and dog walkers, stealing kisses under dogwood blooms. Atlanta hummed around them, a queer mecca of dive bars and drag shows, where rainbow flags snapped like declarations. At the Eagle, a leather-clad haven, they danced to pulsing house tracks, Isaiah's two-step awkward but earnest against Elijah's fluid sway. Feels free, Isaiah shouted over the bass, sweat slick and grinning. Elijah pulled him close. That's the point. Yet freedom's price came calling. A week in, Harlan Sr.'s lawyer emailed. Foreclosure papers. Signatures needed for the family plot. Sign over your share. It read. Or lose it all. Isaiah stared at the screen, jaw set. It's blood, Eli. Granddaddy broke his back for that soil. Elijah's temper flared. And we're blood too. You gonna mortgage us for dirt? The fight spilled, words like shrapnel. Isaiah accusing Elijah of not understanding roots. Elijah firing back about chains disguised as legacy. Doors slammed. Isaiah storming to the fire escape for a smoke. Elijah hurling a sketchpad that fluttered harmlessly to the floor. Reconciliation came midnight. Isaiah slipping back in with takeout from that hole-in-the-wall soul food joint on Auburn Avenue. Truce? He offered. Fried chicken steaming between them. Elijah sighed, picking at greens. I get it. Family's a knot. But untangle wrong, and we choke. They talked till dawn. Isaiah's childhood sermons on Sodom. Elijah's mom coming out at 40, losing her church choir gig but gaining peace. Vulnerability bonded them tighter. Scars mapped into strengths. Climax brewed on a sticky June eve. Isaiah's cousin, bigoted brute from the wedding, showing up unannounced at the loft door. reeking of cheap whiskey. Family sent me, he slurred, fist pounding. You carrying up the bloodline? Come back, fix your mess, or daddy's land goes to auction. Isaiah blocked the threshold, voice steel. Tell him I'm done fixin'. This is my life. The cousin lunged, a haymaker glancing Isaiah's cheek, splitting skin. Elijah surged forward, grabbing a lamp base, not swinging, but standing ground. Get out, he growled, or we call it in. The brawl spilled to the hall, grunts and thuds echoing off cinderblock. Isaiah pinned his cousin, fist cocked but dropping. Enough blood, he panted. Go home. The man slunk away, cursing, but the damage lingered, bruise blooming purple on Isaiah's jaw, a mirror to the wedding's invisible wounds. In the aftermath, Elijah cleaned the cut with witch hazel, hands steady. You chose us, he said softly. Isaiah pulled him down, kiss tasting of copper and courage. Every time, but betrayal's echo rang deeper. Days later, rifling Isaiah's wallet for cash, Elijah found it, a crumpled ultrasound photo, dated 2 months back. Becca's handwriting on the back. Not yours, but family anyway. Keep safe. Elijah's world tilted. Had Isaiah known? Slept with him carrying that secret? Confrontation exploded in the loft, Elijah waving the photo like evidence. You lied again? While I was pouring my soul out. Isaiah paled, sinking to the futon. She told me after the walkout. Miscarriage hit hard, blamed the stress. I didn't know how to say it without breaking us more. Elijah's rage fractured into sobs. The ultimate betrayal. Not just the wedding, but a child that could have bound Isaiah to the life he'd fled. You keep choosing them, he choked. Even now, Isaiah knelt, head bowed. No. I'm choosing you. But I can't erase the past. The loft echoed with their grief. Rain, always rain, streaking the window like tears. Elijah walked out that night, wandering Midtown's neon veins, bars pulsing with laughter he couldn't touch. At a quiet jazz spot on Edgewood, saxophone wailing loss, he sketched strangers' faces, catharsis in lines. Dawn found him on a bench in Grant Park, phone dead, heart heavier than the humid air. Isaiah found him there, coffee in hand, eyes red-rimmed. I sold the truck, he said, sitting close. Cash for your gallery dream. No more ties. Elijah searched his face, seeing truth etched deep. And the farm, Isaiah shrugged. I let it go. Roots rot if you don't transplant. They walked back, shoulders brushing. The photo burned in a metal trash can, ashes for absolution. Summer deepened, their love a slow burn now, tempered by fire. Elijah's sketches evolved, series called Vows Unraveled, capturing the wedding's chaos in bold strokes. Veils as chains, mics as megaphones for the silenced. Isaiah bartended at a queer-friendly spot in East Atlanta, slinging IPAs and stories, his drawl charming tipsy patrons. They hosted game nights with Elijah's art crowd, drag queens and poets, Isaiah's awkward charm winning them over. Y'all are louder than a Harlan hog call, he'd joke, but he'd stay till the end, washing glasses with a smile. Yet the humanistic pull tugged letters from Willow Creek. Lila's olive branch. Daddy's a skin for you. Not forgiveness, but understandin'. Come see him? Isaiah wavered, Elijah steadying. Go. Close the circle. I'll be here. The visit was a gauntlet, Harlan Sr. Frail in his recliner, oxygen hissing, eyes hard but cracking. thought I raised a man, he rasped. Isaiah knelt. You did. Just not the one you planned. Words bridged chasms, regrets aired. A hand clasped, not warm but thawing. Becca joined later, coffee black, no grudges. We heal different, she said. But we heal. Back in Atlanta, Elijah's show loomed, September, a pop-up in Castleberry Hill. Nerves jangled, but Isaiah's pride anchored. Your magic? Eli. Show him. The night arrived. Gallery buzzing with critics and collectors. Walls alive with their story. Vows unraveled sold out. Headlines in creative loafing. From wedding wrecker to art star. Isaiah stood sentinel, arm around Elijah's waist, whispering, we did this, but peaks precede valleys. October brought Isaiah's cough, dry at first, dismissed as fall allergies. By November, deepened, X-rays revealing shadows, stage 2 Hodgkin's, aggressive. The diagnosis hit like the barn doors, world splintering anew. The oncologist's office in Emory's Crawford long smelled of antiseptic hope. Fluorescent lights buzzing like hesitant fireflies over faded blue walls. Dr. Patel, a wiry woman with kind eyes behind wire rims, laid it out plain. Treatable, Mr. Harlan. Chemo, radiation, 8 rounds, then scans. Remission's likely if we move fast. Isaiah nodded, jaw set like he was facing down a defensive line, but his hand, clammy in Elijah's, betrayed the tremor. Elijah squeezed back, mind reeling, not now. Not after the wreckage we've rebuilt. They drove home in silence. Atlanta's traffic a snarl of brake lights mirroring the knot in Elijah's chest. Isaiah fiddled with the radio, landing on a classic rock station, Springsteen's Thunder Road, gravel-voiced yearning that cut too close. We'll beat this, Isaiah said finally, as if willing it true. Farm boys are tough. Elijah forced a smile, but inside, panic clawed. The wedding's chaos felt trivial now, a skirmish before war. Love had pulled them from betrayal's brink. But could it defy cells gone rogue? The loft transformed overnight. Pharmacy bags crowding the counter. A whiteboard calendar marked with infusions and follow-ups. Isaiah dove in stoic, shaving his head preemptively with Elijah's clippers, the buzz echoing like a vow. No half-assing bald, he quipped, running a hand over the stubble. Elijah traced the scalp, vulnerable terrain, kissing the crown. Sexy as hell. Intimacy shifted, gentler now, less conquest than communion, bodies navigating fatigue with care. Nights, they'd lie tangled, Isaiah's head on Elijah's chest, heartbeat a lullaby against the chemo's distant roar. Elijah's art became lifeline. The Vows series morphed into shadows and light, abstracts of Isaiah's journey. Dark swirls yielding to gold veins, resilience in repose. He painted through tears, canvas a confessional. This one's you, he'd say, showing a piece of stormy skies parting to dawn. Isaiah, weak from rounds, would grin. Frame it. We'll hang it over the bed. Remind me who's boss. Friends rallied. Elijah's mom flew up from West End, cornbread and hugs in tow. Lila drove from Georgia, bunking on the futon with smuggled moonshine. Cancer don't scare Harlans, she declared, braiding Elijah's locks while Isaiah napped. But conflict festered in the quiet hours. Isaiah's stoicism cracked. Mornings hunched over the toilet, retching bile, cursing God and chemo alike. Why now? He'd rasp, eyes hollow. Just got free. Elijah held him, whispering absurdities. So the universe could test if we're unbreakable. Doubt crept for Elijah too. Bills stacking like accusations, gallery gigs drying as he played nurse. A brutal round left Isaiah bedbound, fever spiking, hallucinations whispering farm ghosts. "Daddy's comin' for me," he mumbled, delirious. Elijah cooled his brow, fighting tears. "No. It's us against the dark." Betrayal reared subtle. Isaiah's secrecy about pain meds, hoarding doses to tough it out, landing him in ER with a drop in counts. "Didn't want to burden you," he admitted, for dripping saline. Elijah's anger flared hot. "Burden? We're partners. Is not savior and saved." The fight was hushed. Hospital beeps underscoring fragility, ending in apologies sealed with dry lips. "I forget," Isaiah sighed. "Lovin' means sharin' the load." Human moments pierced the grind. Lila's visits brought stories, Willow Creek thawing. A pride flag snuck onto the barn for solidarity. Becca texted well wishes. "Kick cancer's ass. Oh, you a rematch dance." Isaiah laughed, weak but genuine, showing Elijah a photo from the farm. His old truck sold, proceeds funding a community garden. "Growin' something new," he said. Elijah nodded, pride swelling. Their love deepened, romantic in mundanity. Isaiah braiding wildflowers into Elijah's hair during park picnics. Elijah reading poetry aloud. Audre Lorde's fire fueling their fire. Climax crashed mid-treatment. Round 5. Isaiah's counts tanked. Infection brewing, neutropenia. The docs called it isolation protocol slamming shut. Elijah suited up in gown and mask, visiting through glass like a sci-fi tragedy. "This sucks," Isaiah joked from his bed, voice muffled. But his eyes sunken, pleading betrayed fear. That night, alone in the loft, Elijah shattered, sobs racking him over cold tiles, grief for the man remade by machines. What if we lose this? The thought clawed, betrayal anew, not Isaiah's, but fate's cruel twist. He channeled it into art, a fevered all-nighter birthing veins of valor. Isaiah's portrait, bald head haloed in light, veins like rivers of resolve. Gallery owner called Dawn. Sell it. For him, proceeds bought a tablet for Isaiah's isolation, loaded with their playlist, mixtapes reborn digital. When counts rebounded, Isaiah homebound but healing, he pulled Elijah close. "You saved me," he whispered. Elijah shook his head. "We save each other." Winter blanketed Atlanta in rare frost, the loft a cocoon of blankets and broth. Isaiah's hair sprouted stubborn fuzz, Elijah dubbing it rebel stubble. They dreamed aloud. Post-remission road trip, Route 66 to California, chasing sunsets. "No more hidin'," Isaiah vowed. Elijah sketched the itinerary, hearts dotting eyes. But scans loomed, the verdict that could crown or crush. The day came crisp, March thaw teasing. Dr. Patel's office again, scans glowing on screens like verdicts from on high. "Clear," she said, smiling. "Remission." "Full," Isaiah whooped, scooping Elijah into a bear hug that lifted him off the linoleum. Tears flowed free, relief, rage, rapture. In the parking lot, they kissed under budding dogwoods, world blooming anew. Back home, celebration simmered slow. Takeout from Pascal's, Elijah's mom on speakerphone whooping gospel praises. Isaiah raised a glass, sparkling cider, chemo's gift. To us, the unbreakable, Elijah clinked, eyes shining. To tomorrow's, that night, Lovemaking was triumphant, bodies alive with victory's pulse. But humanism whispered caution. Scars remained, reminders that joy's fragile, earned. Spring unfurled, Isaiah stronger daily, gym sessions rebuilding muscle, Elijah's show touring shadows to acclaim in Savannah. They volunteered at the cancer center, Isaiah mentoring farm boys facing infusions, Elijah leading art therapy for queer youth. Turn pain to power, he'd tell them, charcoal in hand. Isaiah watched, love plain as day. Yet echoes lingered. Harlan Sr.'s passing came gentle. June, peaceful in his bed, garden blooming outside. Isaiah drove home alone. Elijah's blessing, bury the past kind. The funeral was subdued. Kin nodding at Elijah in the pews. No welcome, but no war. Lila hugged tight. He's proud. Deep down, Isaiah returned lighter. Ashes scattered on the Chattahoochee. Closure's current carrying grudges away. Summer found them road-tripping west. Truck bed piled with coolers and canvases. Grand Canyon rims. Vegas neon. Pacific whispers each mile amending. In a Joshua Tree motel, under star-pricked skies, Isaiah proposed not ring, but words. Marry me, Eli. Our way, no scripts, just us. Elijah laughed, tears salting. Hell yes, back east. Wedding plans brewed untraditional. Backyard vows in Elijah's mom's garden. Drag officiant. Barbecue feast. Invites went queer and chosen family. Willow Creek a memory honored. Not haunted. But life, ever the dramatist, teased one last twist. The garden behind MS. Washington's bungalow burst with late summer riot. Zinnias flaming red and orange. Crepe myrtles drooping pink under Georgia heat. Fairy lights strung lazy between oaks like fireflies caught mid-flight. It wasn't Willow Creek, no barn grandeur, no 200 judging eyes, but it was theirs, pieced from potlucks and perseverance. Elijah stood at the makeshift altar, a trellis draped in rainbow bunting, heart hammering not with fear, but fullness. His suit was custom, linen sharp, emerald green to match his eyes, a phoenix pin glinting at the lapel. Isaiah waited opposite, in soft chambray, stubble grown to a beard that shadowed his grin, hazel eyes locked like anchors. The officiant, a queen named Ruby Red, in sequined caftan and heels that sank in the grass, cleared her throat dramatically. Darlings, we're gathered not under some dusty steeple, but in the dirt where love grows wild. Elijah Washington, Isaiah Harlan, y'all ready to vow eternal mess? Laughter rippled through the 30 guests. Elijah's art collective, Isaiah's sister Lila with her new girlfriend, Becca surprising from the back row, sundress simple and smile genuine. MS. Washington dabbed eyes with a lace hanky, her choir voice humming approval. Elijah went first, words rehearsed in whispers but spilling raw. Isaiah, you crashed into my world like thunder on a clear day. Scared me, shook me, showed me home ain't a place, but a person. Through weddings wrecked and cancers conquered, you chose us. I vow to choose you back, in galleries and sickbeds, road trips and rainy nights. To hold your hand when the world's watchin', and your heart when it ain't. Isaiah's eyes glistened, that farm boy blush creeping up his neck. Isaiah stepped forward, voice steady as river stone. Eli, you saw me when I was blind to myself, pulled me from scripts I never wrote. You loved me loud when I could only whisper. Through betrayals I owned and pains we shared, you stayed. I vow to build with you, art and acres, whatever shape home takes. To fight fair, love fierce, and remind you daily you're my rewrite. Rings exchanged, simple bands etched with phoenix flames, slid smooth, sealing promises in gold. Ruby's pronouncement boomed. By the power vested in me by the state of Georgia and the goddess of glitter, I pronounce you husbands. Kiss already. Cheers erupted. Whoops and whistles. As Isaiah dipped Elijah into a kiss that tasted of bourbon and forever. Deep, unhurried, the garden spinning around them. Cake followed. Red velvet towers. Drunk uncles, Isaiah's cousins. Reformed bigots toasting with mason jars. Becca pulled Elijah aside, hugging fierce. Happier than I ever was, she murmured. You too? Magic. Dusk settled, fireflies winking approval, as the crowd thinned to stragglers around a bonfire pit. Isaiah and Elijah swayed slow to a playlist. Al Green crooning soul, their bodies fitting like puzzle ends worn smooth. Regrets? Isaiah asked, chin on Elijah's shoulder. Elijah thought, the wedding crash, the chemo chills, the night's doubt whispered loud. Nah. They forged us. Isaiah hummed agreement, hands splayed warm on Elijah's back. Life post-vows unfolded humanistic, no fairy tale gloss but grounded grace. They bought a fixer-upper in Decatur shotgun style, yard big enough for a studio shed and veggie patch. Isaiah apprenticed at a green energy co-op, retrofitting farms for solar. Elijah's Shadows series toured nationally, commissions rolling in for murals on queer centers from Miami to Seattle. Mornings started tangled in Egyptian cotton, coffee brewing while Isaiah scrambled eggs, Elijah sketching over the sports page. Challenges came, as they do, Isaiah's 6-month scans clean, but anxiety a shadow that therapy tamed. Elijah's sophomore slump, a canvas trashed in frustration, salvaged by Isaiah's quiet. Burn it or birth it. Your call. They traveled, New Orleans jazz funerals turned celebrations, New York gallery openings where Isaiah charmed curators with drawl and dimples. Family mended slow. Lila's wedding in the barn. Elijah best man. Toasts bridging old divides. Harlan Sr.'s grave visited yearly. Wildflowers left as olive branches. Betrayal's ghost visited once more. Subtle. An ex from Isaiah's Auburn days emailing. Spilling dorm room flings Isaiah had buried. Elijah confronted. Hurt fresh. Why hide that? Isaiah sighed. Honest. Shame's a liar. Thought it'd taint us. They unpacked it over wine. Emerging closer, transparency the mortar. Romance bloomed domestic. Anniversary picnics in the yard. Elijah's paintings of Isaiah aging graceful. Silver threading his beard. Laugh lines mapping joy. They mentored. Queer youth art workshops. Isaiah coaching Little League with an emphasis on team over trophies. Humanism defined them, volunteering at the food bank, where Elijah sketched portraits for the homeless. Isaiah loading trucks with stories swapped. One crisp fall eve. 5 years wed. They drove to Willow Creek unannounced. The barn stood renovated. Pride flags fluttering beside the steeple. Becca ran the cafe now. Widowed young but radiant. Pouring them coffee. Heard y'all made the papers. Art hubby and solar savior. Laughter flowed. Then quiet. Forgive the mess we made? Elijah asked. Becca waved it off. Made us all better. Stronger. As they drove back. Sunset gilding the highway. Isaiah's hand found Elijah's. Think we won? Elijah grinned. Squeezing. Nah. But we're winning. The road stretched endless. Their story no tidy end but a continuum. Dramatic arcs softened to emotional waves. Romantic fires banked to enduring glow. In America's heartland sprawl, two men who'd crashed a wedding proved love's rewrite. Not perfection, but persistence. Human, flawed, unbroken. And in the rear view, Willow Creek faded gentle, a chapter closed. Not with by kitsch's sting but a humanistic hush. Love wins, quiet as dawn.